Hello, my friends. I'm excited. Are you excited? Let me know if you are here in the chat. I can see some little eyeballs, which tells me that there's people watching, but it doesn't tell me who you are. So I love knowing who's here. I see Amy is here. Hello, Amy. And if you guys want to pop a note in, say hello, let us know where you're joining from. We are getting into a conversation that if you've been hanging out with me for a while, you know I'm somewhat passionate about, but also kind of freaks me out. We are going to be talking about money today. So for those of you joining from YouTube, I have mentioned an fund before. Super important, especially if you are in a toxic job situation, to have money just in case something happens. It's a good practice to have in general in life. And while I have kind of been good at budgeting and stuff like that, I'm not really a finance expert in terms of helping you get started and all of that stuff. So I have brought my friend. So I'm not going to beat around the bush. You guys know I like to get straight into it. So I'm going to bring my friend Kirsten up here with me.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for having me on. I'm so grateful to be here with you all today. Like, am I here? Am I here? Oh my gosh.
You're here. So, so for those of you who are in the chat, I will put your hellos and stuff on screen. If a comment or a question seems to be somewhat sensitive, or I think maybe you don't want it on the internet, I will lay off. But for now, Amy is here. We have Lola here. We have Lindsay here. We have Jackie here. Eric is here. Ray is here. Jamie is here. So people joining from all over, which is pretty cool. We have Michael from the Purple State. So good crew tuning in here. All right. So let's start off with the basics. So recently I did a survey, which I know is like very scientific. It was on LinkedIn, so not the most valid, but that's okay. But of the respondents that I asked who were feeling stuck in a job, 50% said it was because they couldn't afford to leave. So this is where having a savings account comes in kind of handy, right? So for those people that don't have their exit fund, whatever you want to call it, ready to go, where do you suggest that people start with savings?
So the thing is, I would say that when building that emergency fund, one of the biggest things that stops people is they kind of get overwhelmed by looking at, say, okay, you know what? I need a minimum of 6 months. I need a minimum of 4 months, 5 months. So I would just say in terms of actually like breaking it down and start 1 month at a time.
Okay.
This is probably going to sound counterproductive because I know you want to attack that big goal and you want to just have that peace of mind due to your safety cushion. But I strongly recommend actually like writing down all of your monthly expenses, not the variables like the clothes and the eating out. I know y'all want to enjoy some of that fun stuff, but the real nitty-gritty things that you actually have, and then backtrack it in terms of, okay, if your goal is your monthly expense times the amount of months that you should have, okay, we're going to have 3 months, then divide that number into 12 and then say, okay, what is a great amount that I can start according to my situation? And the thing is, I mean, last year, if more than ever, it spoke volumes about the importance of having one. And some people, they might disagree with me on this, but they're like, you should pay off your debt first. I'm like, The reality is, if you go into more debt because of an emergency, that's even worse because y'all got some serious interest rates. So, I would not start there.
Yeah. So Michael just brought up a good point. And I mean, would you love if every single one of your clients saved 20% of every paycheck?
Honestly, I'd say really depends, like your income ratio according to like all the other liabilities you have. But I would say a minimum, start at 10%. And from there, work your way up. But as a bare minimum, I would start at 10%. If you can do 20, that's phenomenal. Bless your discipline. but not everybody is there yet. Some people, they got medical bills because 2020 happened. So we got to start somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like, I don't know, my opinion is kind of like start with whatever you've got. Like, and how do you find with your clients? Because this is something that I personally noticed with myself. Like getting started was hard, but once I had like that 1 month, putting more away became easier and finding ways to like increase the percentage became easier. Is that something that you've seen as well? Or am I just a weirdo?
No, I would say it's just like picking up a new workout routine in terms of like, yes, that first class of CrossFit or whatever it is, it's hard. It's
Yeah.
tough. It's uncomfortable. It's not sexy. But
Yeah.
I think that the greatest feeling that you'll have after that, after you figure out ways to tweak what it is that you have and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to cut down on some subscriptions. If I have certain things that I can share with a
Right.
friend, do it. If there's a way to even maybe downsize and not live in somewhere that is maybe just that city, the cost of living is a little bit higher. Figure out maybe somewhere not so upscale, maybe a little bit more suitable, because
Right.
your goal, you're going to pat yourself on the back later and say, hey, you know what? I did that. Yes, you did. You did that.
Now, I want to dig in because you mentioned debt. And I know that debt is something that a lot of people are dealing with between student loans, car loans, and credit card payments. Most people have one of those, if not all of those. Now, you said that you don't suggest that people prioritize debt. So how do you balance that out, especially if you have like a big debt number hanging over your head?
Yes. So after an emergency fund, once you have that, in terms of, I would say pay off your high interest debt first. And you're probably like, Kirsten, what even is that?
In English.
Yes. Pretty much when we're looking at high interest, we're looking at anywhere from 7% and above. And why that number? Because 7 to 8% is the approximate return that you can get in the stock market. So if there's if that amount that you could be earning is digging away from you, and typically we're looking at credit card interest rates, they're around 18% roughly.
Yeah.
So start by paying off that first, because that is going to eat away more of your earning potential if you don't attack that first.
Mm-hmm. That is good to know. I see some more people joining in.
Hello.
Now, I know that saving money, paying off debt, all of that stuff isn't just a matter of, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to wave my magic wand. Like there's all sorts of kind of beliefs, misconceptions, mindsets that start coming into play. In your experience, like what are some of the top obstacles that aren't like the tactical, actually not spending money things that you see people encounter when they are trying to start their emergency fund or just start investing even?
So oftentimes what I see surface a lot are actually subconsciously, there's our behaviors that we picked up somewhere along the road in our environment. Typically, studies have shown that ages 1 to 7 is when we're most vulnerable to picking up all of these behavioral patterns and even energy patterns as well. So like, for example, one of them is that there's a really big misconception, and I see in a lot of it in terms of people that they have maybe even some sort of, I'll say certain moral or religious beliefs that money is evil. And the thing is, I'm like, well, is it money that's evil, or is it the love of money that maybe you read somewhere that was ingrained in you that you felt was wicked? And the thing is, when people, they're hearing this as a child growing up, because people don't desire to be evil. We don't want to be a bad person. So therefore, a lot of opportunities that are outside of our comfort zone, we tend to reject them, or we tend to just say, no, this isn't for me. Another thing that commonly sprouts and thrives is just even the language that we use around money. So we do have to be very careful. because if we're indifferent,
Mm-hmm.
high likelihood you'll have some form of debt. Or something will eat away at your wealth, taxes or something like that. If you're saying I was ripped off, if you have such a negative stigma towards it, then most likely even money will resist you just coming back towards you. So seeing of it as a friend rather than something that is an enemy and that you're battling against definitely changes the equation here.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what Travis said here. Money is a tool. It's how we choose to use it that makes it good or evil. One of the things that I've heard from a lot of people as well is the story of, especially people who have acquired a little bit of debt, is I'm not good with money as well. And I feel like that's something that you get the story and then you aren't good with money. And then it kind of starts to play off of each other. And then you start to feel a little bit defeated, right?
Yes. And oftentimes, I would say it's not people themselves that are not good with money, but somewhere along the way, someone told them. They picked up a behavioral pattern that that person probably had a strong influence in their life around them. And because they weren't good with money, the moment that they imitated a mistake, therefore they adopted that as their own, did not create a distance between that person's behavioral pattern and themselves, and therefore they took it up as their own. So most likely someone around them wasn't good with money, and therefore they now believe I'm not good with money.
Yeah. Well, and it even goes to like, I mean, you brought up like, we think money is good or bad. And there's like that internalized belief that a lot of people have of money is bad, but money is like paper. It's not even paper anymore. Like it's this digital concept, right? And like these concepts, like how can you judge them to be good or bad? It's all neutral, right?
Definitely. I would say creating that emotional distance with it in terms of, well, you do want to show appreciation towards it and show gratitude, because what you appreciate does appreciate. I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it in many different forms, but I personally see it as money is energy and we're simply circulators of it. So whatever we attach to it, if we attach like generosity, if we attach gratitude with it, that's going to circulate around. But if you resist or feel annoyed every time you have to pay something, then with resistance, it's going to come back to you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I like Enrique's point here as well. Your money should be working all the time. Don't let it sit in the bank. But this and especially could we talk about this one a little bit since Enrique brought it up? Because this, I think, especially if you are just starting off with your journey of thinking about money, getting your financial health in order, the thought of investing is really terrifying. And people feel over their head. So it's just like, okay, I'm going to hide from it. Or on the flip side, you get an app like Robinhood and then you think it's a game and you start making all sorts of mistakes. Getting your stonks and crypto and all of that stuff. So there's there seems to be like the binary of like, I am scared of it and I'm going to hide, or I'm just going to jump in and make some big bets and maybe get stung a little bit. But in terms of actually making your money work for you, I know that there is not everything is as high risk as jumping into things blindly or hiding. So for people that are like, okay, so first of all, okay, I'm going to start to save. I'm going to put away the money that I can. I'm going to make a goal every month to put away a little bit more. I'm going to pay down my debt, and fraction up that money. But, if there is maybe theoretically anything left, let's say you have your savings of 10%, you're making your credit card debt, maybe even, it's a bonus at work or something. You don't want to just leave that money in a savings account. That's not really doing anything. So how can people actually get started? What do you think is a good entry level for people to begin investing and getting their money to work for them?
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I would say is number one, keeping present the principle of
Sorry. I just downloaded Coinbase, so who am I to judge?
I'm seeing a lot of different opinions. Okay, so we have some Elon fans in the house. I don't judge you. I mean, you have your Ethereum and your, you know, that's your play money. I mean, bless your heart. Bless your heart. That's
Yeah.
I'm not going to shame you for that. So
Thomas, just put your life savings in. Put your life savings in. Nothing's gonna go wrong. Like it's only going up from here. No risk. So like we talk about low risk investment, high risk. This is like very low risk. Don't listen to me, anyone.
As I can tell, we have a lot of ballers in the house. People like to go all in or nothing. Oh my goodness. I'm just having a moment here. Sorry.
That's totally fine. We're great at staying on topic today. Okay, but for real. So aside from, you know, the Robinhood, Dogecoin, I was saying doggy coin, and apparently that's wrong. Outside of kind of starting with these like apps that I think are good because it does make it accessible. And I think that like you actually doing it can be good because I know a lot of people just kind of learn by messing up a little bit, but you don't want to learn by messing up with your life savings. So when you have that emergency fund, it starts to run over. It's like, okay, what am I going to do? Where do you think, and I know that it's not the same for everyone, but what different pathways can people take to start investing responsibly?
Mm-hmm. So just two of the ones that I'm gonna drop here, like very generically, I would say that index funds and a Roth IRA are a good place to start. So in terms of people that maybe their risk tolerance isn't that high, or they don't have as much time on their side. Definitely there's things way more volatile, like you guys mentioned, in terms of Dogecoin, Shiba coin, all these different coins, fat coin, Litecoin, whatever. So
yeah,
there's definitely a whole spectrum of things out there. But I would say starting with those two vehicles are not a bad place, because the thing is, you start to build the muscle and the habit of making the stock market returns work for you without necessarily the volatility of something that is so up in the air and that is not as have as much consistency in terms of solid returns.
Yeah, because I mean, as interesting as Shiba might be, like that's essentially putting some money into a slot machine and seeing if you win.
I would say that that's the reason in terms of why working with someone is important, because they can help you evaluate your risk tolerance and also to invest accordingly to your time frame, because everyone has a different timeline. So some people are like, well, I just want to invest to maybe buy some more real estate properties within 10 years.
Right.
Well, then that should be calculated according to your goal. Other people say, I'm in it for the long haul. So then it requires a different strategy as well. So keeping in mind what it is that you seek to accomplish is really important, because otherwise it's very easy to just guide yourself with, oh, well, my friend said this. Oh, you know what? My Aunt Hilda told me that. But
and I mean, how much do you cringe when people are taking action on that kind of?
Oh gosh. I mean, from Twitter to Reddit. Oh my God. There's an abundance of things out there.
It's you know, it's very the kind of speculation is very interesting to me. But actually this weekend, and I never do this, but I actually hung out on Reddit and I was looking in the crypto boards. Because again, I downloaded Coinbase. I'm like, oh, obviously I'm gonna just make lots of money doing this with my no money that I have invested. But there was a crazy amount of people who had lost like vast amounts of money in the past month. But you mentioned, and like this is something that comes into play too, and that is knowing your risk tolerance. Like, and this is something that I feel like a lot of people need help with, because some people are like, oh yeah, like I have a really high risk tolerance, but they really don't, or they don't really know what that means.
Exactly. Like I would say that making sure your foundation is set up properly is important. It's just like the house you live in or just any property that you see. I mean, naturally, because winds of life, they are going to blow. We saw last year. Nobody was really prepared for, I mean, what in the world? A global pandemic. So having a foundation set up properly gives you more room to deal with these more volatile things. One of the biggest mistakes I see people though is when their foundation is upside down or plopped inversely. When the first thing they do is bam, we're now to the moon, raise a roof.
So like they get their first month of savings and they're like, okay, I'm definitely putting this into crypto of some sort.
Right. So when like the foundation is totally like flopped underneath in terms of people, they don't have an emergency fund base. They don't have tax advantaged accounts set up for retirement. They don't have any life insurance. They don't have health insurance. Things that are definitely give you that peace of mind and are fundamental before you go into all these other things. I'm like, if you want to experiment, do that. Yes, but make sure you got your fundamentals first.
Yes. And making sure that you have like the essentials. So again, like starting with, do I have, if things go sideways and I'm someone who like, I've had major house repairs unexpectedly, and that's not things that you want to take loans out for or pay with on credit cards because the 18% interest really is not fun. Having the emergency fund is going to be important. And then like looping it back to the toxic job, when you have that foundation of your 6 to 12 months, which is what you should have in general, that gives you a lot of power. Not only if you're in a toxic work situation and you know that you need to walk away, you can do so confidently knowing that you have financial run room to do so. But when you actually get into an offer situation, that still gives you negotiating power because you're not stressed. The worst place to be is when you're in a toxic job and you're just so desperate to get out that you will take any offer and any amount of money just to get out because your psychological safety is important, right? And like, so prioritizing that, like we just talked about before, like going nuts and jumping onto like whatever stonks or crypto is popular today. But I feel like that is so tempting. And when it has been somewhat gamified by apps. Now, someone mentioned another app called Stash. Have you heard of that one?
There are definitely a lot of apps out there. There's Personal Capital, there's Mint, there's so many out there. I would say that depending on where you're at, and then also the level of like feedback that you want as well. Because if you have a family in terms of like people relying you, then it's a higher level of responsibility. It may not be the best idea to have everything controlled by AI, and robotics or just by external opinions. That's something. The other aspect is in terms of you have aging parents. So there's so many factors that come into the equation before you go out and do more things that, okay, you lose it. Oh, well, doesn't matter. Doesn't affect you.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I want to dig in because I think this is one thing that a lot of people, especially when we're not in top financial health, we like to hide from, is the monthly expenses. So when you're doing the math, like how often should people be looking at their income versus expenses at a minimum and then at a maximum? Because I think we kind of need to know both.
I would say in terms of your expenses, a minimum twice a month. I would say twice a month is a great place to start. Don't go obsessive you don't have to be like those people that are like every day, like, oh my gosh, because that's where, the worry does consume you and you're just literally radiating fear. So then with more fear, you're going to have to come across opportunities that could increase your revenue. But at minimum, evaluating that twice a month is good. So that way you have that check-in point where you're like, okay, am I on balance with my budget and what I'm doing?
Yeah. And I know some people kind of end up being forced just by paychecks matter. I very much remember those days of, can I afford to get groceries or do I need to wait a few more days and live off whatever cans are kicking around? Or, is credit cards necessary and stuff. So like, I think, I know some people kind of are there by force, but if you're not there by force, it's still a good thing to do, and don't hide from it. Even if the amount that you spend on shoes is kind of scary to you, like it is to me, because it's okay. The shoes are nice as long as they're not stressing you out financially.
Yes, though that's a misconception some people have, that's why the reason you should have a fun fund is because otherwise things can get really stressful if you're only on just the nitty gritty and you don't give yourself some leeway. It brings me so much, how do you say, irritation when people say you're broke because of your avocado toast. I'm like, no, that's not the reason why people are like that. Like, stop it.
Avocado toast is not that expensive, especially if you're in California where avocados are very inexpensive. Bread is not that much either.
Seriously.
Yeah. No, and I mean, like at a certain point, even if you are making decisions between, do I get avocado toast or do I do this other thing? You're probably not taking the avocado toast money out of your essentials. Like your car is paid, your rent is paid, your groceries have been purchased before you go into the restaurant for avocado toast for most people, right? Now, different story if you're going to avocado toast breakfast every single day and putting it on your credit card, maybe. But that's not going to be the actual issue. There's more things that are underlying that, right?
There's probably way bigger things in terms of that person could be paying too much interest even on their mortgage. That person could likely be paying too much income taxes. That person most likely, maybe they have too many subscriptions or just things even monthly that are eating away at their budget. So lots of other things that are underlying.
Well, like, do you agree with this though? Like, do you think that, I mean, credit cards are somewhat of a necessity, especially like in an online world where they're how we pay for a lot of things. But what is your opinion towards credit cards?
Ooh, so a lot of people I know they have a negative stigma against them. I would say credit cards are not bad. I use particularly a credit card instead of a debit card. Because number one, the cybersecurity features, not cybersecurity, sorry. I saw Enrique's name and I said cybersecurity.
We just like map the two together.
Yeah, you see my brain.
Same.
Flies the two thing. But so the reason why credit cards are great because they help protect you from identity theft. And the other thing is if you pay off your balance in full, you're stacking up points, you're helping boost your FICO score, and you have travel points. So, I mean, especially things are like reopening. Who doesn't want to travel, with all these like advantages and things. So, I mean, particularly if you're disciplined and you can pay off the balance each month, they are not bad. But if you're not disciplined with a credit card, then definitely do not use it as your debit card because you have to make sure that it does not hurt your credit score because ultimately that's your reputation when you go buy a house, you go buy a car, and all these other situations in life.
Yeah. And I mean, establishing it is hard enough, but getting it back from a bad score, like I had the issue of being new to the US. I didn't establish any credit because I didn't have a bank account in my name. I didn't have a credit card in my name. So when I went to just apply for like a business credit card when I started my business, I got declined. And but you do have to think of those things. So if I just had a credit card, used it periodically, there's like the longer term things. And obviously this is where it starts to get like kind of complicated and we'd have to like be here forever to fully dive into that one. But the monetization of credit cards is important and is a good thing to think of. And like so many people in the comments and Kristen just said, is that make sure that you're paying it off every month. But how many people have like a ridiculous amount of travel points right now that it's like, okay, we are going somewhere when the world opens.
Oh gosh, I mean, I think that's an ideal situation,
I mean, fingers crossed. I mean, it is happening. It's happening slowly but surely. And for anyone who is a credit card point collector, you are going to have some points kicking around to take advantage of. All right. So I wanted to get kind of back into, because I know a lot of people that are watching today are in a situation where they are looking to make a career change, whether it's escaping a toxic job or just they've outgrown their job, they're not totally happy, so they're looking to get out, or they're looking around. Or maybe it's just not a stable work situation because there's still a lot of companies that are a little bit shaky right now. What mistakes have you seen people make when they do make a change in jobs with the money situation?
This is an excellent one. And I see a few different things that consistently. So one of the things is funding a career change off credit cards. So back to the credit card situation.
Don't do
If
it.
there's going to be a gap, please make sure, your new offer is in. Please make sure that you don't fund this off credit cards, because it's not worth the stress of going into debt, which can also even lead to even more health issues and you acquiring even more medical bills and more debt. So I've seen a lot of people, this happens to them and it unfolds. So that's one of the things. And then the other thing is not leaving your employer before your 401k's vesting period. And you're like, ding, ding, ding. Why? Because if not, you will have to give back some of the money that your employer contributed to.
Oh, okay.
So that's a little bit more of a technical thing. And along this valley of retirement accounts, when you do switch jobs, make sure you don't leave your 401k with your old employer. So one of the things that I see here is I'm like, people, number one, you're losing money due to just fees. Your money's no longer being actively invested. And highly likely, if you roll it over to somewhere else, you have more investment options. And what you have sitting there is not losing money. So,
right. And I would assume also that has implications over your career, because I think on average, and this is like a tech industry stat, because that's kind of the world that I come from. So that's the one that I know. But average tenure these days is about 20 to 24 months. And so if you think about it over a 10-year period, you might be dealing with 5 different 401ks lying around in different places. That becomes very hard to manage as well. So like, I'd assume that there's also just an advantage of centralization.
Yes, you do want to move those over and make sure that you have the support and partnership of someone to guide you on where to do that and how to do that efficiently, so you avoid excessive taxes too. Because otherwise, I see so many people, they just cash it out here, cash it out there, and I'm like, oh, y'all could have avoided this.
So like, this is where I'm like, okay, I have no idea what you're talking about now. Cause so I'm like, my knowledge, I grew up in Canada. So most of like my foundational financial understanding is Canadian. Now, I think a lot of the vehicles are the same. They're just kind of called different things. But I thought that you could just can't you just transfer the 401k, or is it more complicated than that?
So I don't want to get too sticky. So I mean, I will try to keep things as general as possible. But essentially, so each tax bucket has different consequences. So here's the thing.
Right.
If you try to just liquidate that 401k or put it somewhere where it's pre-tax money, you will lose money in that transfer. So you want to make sure that when you roll it over to somewhere where it's in the same tax category. So therefore you avoid losing money. And these vary differently depending on your age, depending on your goals. So I'm not going to dive too deep into those, but just a few variables that we probably can't address specifically for everyone watching. Oh gosh, we would be here 4 hours.
I mean, which might get a little bit tiring, and the light that I'm sitting under personally is a little bit toasty, so the makeup wouldn't last very long.
Oh gosh.
Travis's
Yes.
feelings. Now, I
Yes.
noticed over on YouTube, Lindsay had said that she paid off her car. She's not getting another car. Like, car still works. She's driving it. But she's like, someone actually asked why I'm still driving my car. And isn't that just one of the like financial things that drives you a bit nuts of like this constantly like you always need a new phone. You always need a new car. And it's just these expenses where you're paying top dollar for something that has awful appreciation, like depreciation as soon as it's open, off the lot, whatever it is. And the more that you can shift out of that, again, like how much money is Lindsay saving by not having that car payment? And Lindsay, like you can take that car payment and roll it into investing, right?
Exactly. So she is potentially, I mean, like today, we're looking at, you may think it's not a lot, but if she's paying $500 a month, annually that's 6,000. If she puts that 6,000 in a retirement account or other investment account, it gives her even just average return 8%. You're looking at some different numbers there. So one of the things that I would say that even a lot of people they overlook is just the power of being conscious with your choices. And the thing is, it all goes down to belief too, because a lot of these industries that they revolve around, okay, the latest phone, the latest car, they all thrive off people's insecurities and people just believing they're not enough without them.
Yeah. And it's, again, we would have to have another hour-long discussion to get into like the superficiality. Like it's so hard because I know, and I mean, I personally live in New York City. You're in Malibu, right? And these are two locations where like your designers, like there's this appearance element to it, right? And that's hard to like
Newport Beach.
Okay. So, I mean, that's
same. Yeah.
Same. Like we're still kind of like, there's this like image that you feel like you have to portray, but people don't often stop and ask themselves, do I actually need to portray it? Does anyone actually notice? And if anyone judges me for not having a new car, for not having a new high-end handbag, whatever it is, some new stonks, whatever, like, does it actually matter? Because for those kind of short-term, superficial confidence boosters that you feel when you have those things, there are long-term implications. And it's one thing, there's the opportunity cost of investing versus spending the money, but then there's also the likelihood that a lot of people are incurring debts in order to acquire those things. Because if you think about like the car payment goes away, it's not that you're making more money, it's that that debt is now paid off, right?
Exactly. I see this a lot of times in terms of people, even just they move cities and all of a sudden there's a new lifestyle budget that, well, I mean, the word budget flies out of the window, but there's a new lifestyle that they want to keep up with. And I'm like, what is the real cost of y'all looking fancy? I mean, it is much bigger. Because think about it, not just today, but how much that appreciates within 10 years, 15 years, like 20 years. And think about it, okay, you're ultra cool, you know, that edge that you're pulling off and you're showing, think about it. How is that likelihood down the road going to serve you? And most likely, it's not going to serve you at all. It's exactly just like Travis said. I mean, especially the car. My goodness, please, if you can avoid buying a brand new car, avoid it. It is not worth it. One of the worst depreciating assets.
Yes, unless you're buying like one of those super fancy ones that somehow retain their value. I mean, a car, I don't know who I am to talk. I'm in New York City. I don't have a car. I don't drive.
Like the collection ones. I get what you mean, girl. I get what you mean.
But before I lived here, I had like the kind of least expensive car possible. And I drove a 1986 Volkswagen Cabriolet for much longer than I needed to, even though you couldn't drive it for more than 20 minutes, because if it works, it works.
Oh, trust me, your 20 you plus 20 years self is going to say, you know what? Kudos to you for going against the wave. Kudos to you for going against the flashy IG culture.
Yeah.
Kudos to you for respecting yourself, honoring your strengths, and going against the grain of just consumerism.
Yeah, totally. I mean, me 20 years ago could have been buying like that multicolor Louis Vuitton handbag was really popular when I was in college, and I really wanted it. So I did save up money, and I was like, I'm going to get it. My mom was like, I don't know about that. And because I was an adult, I still listened to her. But it totally, like, I mean, because my mom was in banking, she just raised me to save money and do all the basic level stuff. And it's something that, as much as I had to budget and do consciously in my younger days, it's something that definitely paid off and gave me an enormous amount of freedom in my older days. Not that I'm old, but I'm not 20 anymore. But it was the exact same habits that even when I was in the low paid job, the fact that I was saving money, that I had the run room that I needed. I walked into a job I didn't like, and I quit with zero plan, only knowing that I didn't want to do that job anymore. And I was like, I'll figure it out, but I have time, and I didn't have the stress. And it's the same reason why whenever, I've had to make a big jump or start my own business even, it was because of those financial practices that I started very early in my career. Because I think it's also like, for those of you that are in your 20s, it's easy to be like, oh, like, what's a little bit of credit card debt right now? I already have student debt. I'll pay it off when I'm older. I'll make more money. But that compounds. Like, how many people have you met in their like 30s or 40s that are like, I have all this debt and what do I do now?
I would say it's not the bulk of the people that I work with, but definitely quite a significant chunk. And this is not mortgage that we're talking about. We're talking about some of them have student loans. These people, how do you say, like, if there's one rule or one principle that I would say to not overlook, regardless of what age you are, is Rule 72 when it comes to compound interest. Because Rule 72, you divide that by the interest rate, either your money's growing or that your debt will accumulate, your debt will double in terms of, we're talking about credit cards or whatever. People would think twice. People would think twice before picking up that pen and signing, or the DocuSign, whatever y'all using. But
it's one of those things. Mm-hmm. I mean, probably more DocuSign now because we don't want to see people in person still. Maybe we do.
Exactly.
Now, I had something else, another thing that I know that we wanted to talk about, and that was for people. So when I did my survey on LinkedIn that I talked about earlier, people that felt stuck in their jobs, it was 50% couldn't afford to leave. They need the paycheck. They don't have the safety cushion yet. Hopefully this helps you get towards working on that. But on the flip side, I think it was 18% of people were the golden handcuffs crew. They were the high earners who felt like they couldn't walk away. And that brings slightly different things financially, obviously, good problems to have. But when you're working with, kind of the higher earners, the corporate type people, what do you see them overlooking that is costing them opportunity cost immediately and long term?
Two things that I see here. The first one I would say is just depending too much or entirely on employer sponsored retirement plans. I think a lot of times people don't realize that they have more power than they really do. And one of the
Yeah.
things is I'm like, if you, especially in a lot of these tax deferred accounts, like if you are solely relying on somewhere where you will pay an unknown portion amount of taxes to the IRS, you're
Yeah.
putting your family's quality of life in a very volatile position, because it's something I'm like, you can't predict. And I will say this with absolute confidence. You can't predict if there's a 2008 or whatever when you're 55, 65, the age that you choose to slow your hairs
Right.
down and stop working. So that's one
Right.
thing. I don't see enough people diversifying and leveraging other tax advantaged accounts where when they take the money out, they don't have to pay Uncle Sam a huge slice of that. So that's one of the things that I definitely see is not enough diversification and
Yeah.
leveraging and just solely depending on their employer for this.
Yeah. That's well, and it's all so complicated here. So that actually and this is where I'm going to start to pitch you a little bit. But this is super complicated and it's hard to navigate. And again, as someone who I'm not new to the country anymore, I just haven't figured it out. And first of all, your content on LinkedIn and on TikTok is so helpful. And we'll at the end of this chat, we'll get all the links. And if you're on YouTube, you can just click them down below. But at what point, you're a financial consultant, at what stage, financially, career-wise, do you encourage people to start finding someone to partner with to make sure that they are managing their money effectively and making it work for them?
Ideally, I would say even from the earliest, we're talking about mid-20s, late 20s. I would say not procrastinating this or thinking this is only for people that that are super established, have 6 rental properties. Traditionally, traditionally a lot of okay, this is going to be a little bit unpopular, but a lot of people think that you have to be ultra loaded to work with a financial professional.
Yeah.
My screen good?
Yeah, no, sorry, that was me. I was trying to get your contact stuff up quietly and it didn't.
So cute.
It didn't work. It didn't work. How embarrassing.
What happened?
Sorry. Carry on.
No worries. Yeah, so I would say anywhere from mid-20s, late 20s, because the thing is, the sooner and the faster you can avoid certain mistakes. It's not about what you know, but it's about what you don't know that can really hurt you. And I would say that being humble and willing to open our cup, we can observe and just avoid so many things that otherwise it's hard just navigating by yourself. You're like, oh, well, I mean, this person told me this person doing that. And then a lot of times I see people, they're wearing high heel shoes when what's most suitable for them maybe is sneakers. But their friend has high heeled shoes and that's why they think the pumps are the best for them. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah. And I'd imagine as well. So the other thing is I know I myself feel intimidated with some of this stuff because I'm there's different kinds of tax filters. What? So you get into the whole industry has been designed to be complicated so that people like me can't understand it. But this is where this is one of the things I love about you is that you are great about translating all of this information into digestible ways. And so what do you suggest for people that are feeling, because I know not everyone is as awesome as you, but if someone comes in and they're asking you stupid questions like what I ask, there's no judgment. What do you encourage for people that feel that kind of nervousness?
Remember that we all started out somewhere. Myself, I did not grow up knowing. I mean, I come from a background where my parents, they were extremely frugal. They're immigrants. They came here from Canada themselves. And even then from Canada, they had traveled from somewhere else previously. I grew up with limited knowledge, and I thought, oh, well, I put some money in real estate and maybe here, maybe I'll make it. So everyone started somewhere.
Yeah.
We all, I think, just even like when going to school, it starts bit by bit, the fundamentals, and then you get a little bit more fancy and everything. But sometimes the thing is, we don't get to a level of clarity without taking that first step. And the thing is, without curiosity and having that, you could just say that acknowledgement that amplifying our knowledge is not a bad thing, but it can help us to avoid certain mistakes. That's when we're going to realize that, oh, you know what? I do need, we see like a lot of even successful athletes or people that do well in certain areas, the guidance of a mentor, someone to help them along, it can help them to really accelerate their growth and just have more confidence and peace of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we talked about before, like there's these apps that are helpful and informative, and it can be great for you to do and play around with and stuff, but also don't just try to DIY it, is I assume probably a good idea for most people. No matter how good the like videos that you find and stuff like that, like having someone who understands things and with expertise, like you wouldn't go to a doctor that had just watched a YouTube video to figure it out. So don't try to, I mean, we diagnose ourselves on the internet with all sorts of diseases, but we're not always right. And we know that. Which leads me to, okay, so first of all, can we shamelessly plug where people can find you, and then talk a little bit about if someone like is like, okay, like I know that I need a partner and you might be the person who's cool for me. Like, how can people work with you?
Yeah. So I can be easily reached out here, and just send me a message. Honestly, on LinkedIn is probably easiest. I'm not going to have you all these different loopholes. I mean, I don't understand why people submit like 10 forms and then they're like, let's just see if you can talk with us. No, send me a message. I'm more than happy to chat on a call. No use in complicating things.
No, like hand me your social security number, your first child, and a sock full of sage.
Just your right kidney would be nice.
I mean, I feel like there's an investment value there, so I don't know if that's okay for me to say on YouTube, but here we are.
We made it.
We made it. It's fine.
I think people understand our sense of humor, so all good.
I hope so. At least they've gotten a little bit of a sample of it over the past hour. But yeah, so for those of you who are watching on LinkedIn, follow the link in the post. You'll get to her profile. Totally cool there. If you are on YouTube, description bar down below, all of the links are there as well. So you don't have to like do the typing, because if you're like me, you type in and then you type the wrong thing and it's very frustrating. But Instagram and TikTok, and definitely like, because I know a lot of people on YouTube also follow me on TikTok. Like her TikTok is fire.
Thank you. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, no, and like I personally like it because those little things, like you don't have to be an expert, but just getting some level of fluency is going to make you more comfortable. So as you start like interacting with money, you start building that nest egg and you start thinking about other ways to make it grow. It's much less scary if you're watching fun little videos that explain it to you. Just some food for thought.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And I did see, let's see, I'm going to take a scroll through because we have a couple of minutes left. So I'm just going to see if there was questions. I know that Travis had one. It was, things get hard to find. Oh, yes. So first of all, besides Roth IRA, what are other tax advantage options?
Ew, that's a good question. So there definitely are a few out there in terms of like if you're an employee, we know there's things that's Roth 401k. If you have kids, some people leverage 529. There's another one that's like a supercharged Roth. That one goes under the tax code 7702. That one is a little bit more complex because it's, how do you say?
I mean, you were just citing numbers, so you lost me.
There's several different types out there in terms of this, but several CPAs have found it beneficial. And then even just one of the also commonly underlooked one is also life insurance. And I would be happy to explain it to you in terms of like how that works, because a lot of times people think, oh, you know what, this is for, you can't really use it in terms of when you're alive and healthy. But actually, a lot of football coaches and other people, they've been leveraging it for all the different benefits in ways that it served them.
Yeah. And Travis agrees with me surrounding the numbers. All right. Michael has a good question that does not involve stonks or diamond hands. Though those are great questions too. What's more important, making money, budgeting, or lowering taxes? Ooh, it's like asking her favorite child.
Okay, Michael, so you have approximately 59 seconds left. I'm just kidding. So I'm rolling. I'm joking. So first things first, I would start off with your emergency fund in a high yield savings account. Make sure you have at least 3 months in terms of, we're talking about like the budgeting part. The other aspect that I would go to is find out ways that you can, what is cutting away at your money in terms of avoiding unnecessary expenses. Now it's the second thing. And then we think about investing and growing it. But first of all, we need to identify what's causing that snowball to not be so fabulous.
Because you want it to roll and get bigger, not roll and melt.
Exactly. I mean, I don't like my ice cream to be eaten prematurely. I'm like, no, I want to keep that thing rolling.
This is, I think, my favorite money analogy that I have heard in my life. Like, we need to have a GIF. Like, if I had one that I could just like pop on the screen, that would just be perfect. I don't. I am not that good at planning. So Lindsay says, great discussion. Thank you so much. Super inspiring. Good to know there is a way. Absolutely. And like, I think for me, one of the things, like, especially if it is something that is confusing, especially with all of these numbers and taxes and convoluted systems, which is like, especially true in the US, like getting someone to assist is like not as scary as it seems. And you want to make sure that you are getting, you know, the right structures in place so that you can have more yummy ice cream where the ice cream is money.
Yes. I mean, if you can keep that favorite flavor of ice cream in your bucket in your freezer, trust me, your current and future self is like that freezer. It's like that fridge. So keep the ice cream. Don't lose the ice cream.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew, you should make that gift. Please do. And I think that would be awesome.
That would honestly be super epic. Thank you, Andrew. I'm like, if you can share your artistic skills, blessings towards you.
Especially if it could be like not actually ice cream, like if it was dollar bills or Dogecoin.
That would be epic. That would be epic. Oh my goodness.
I had to go there. All right. So we are almost at the top of the hour. So again, I'm just going to pop up Kirsten's contact info. So if it's not there, again, there's like links all over the place, no matter where you're watching it from. So do make sure, follow her, connect with her. If you are curious, get into her DMs, especially on LinkedIn. And thank you so much for joining. Thank you, friends, for tuning in. And is there any like last words, wisdoms that you would like to depart? Like if someone was just watching this point, like this moment of time, what would you say? about the financial ice cream, other than it's yummy.
Okay, ice cream aside, at the end of the day, we cultivate what we compound. So whatever we're compounding, if we're compounding great habits, if we're compounding certain knowledge, then over time we're going to be able to cultivate the benefits of it. But if we're compounding things that are harming us or things that are not serving us, then we're also going to reap the effects of that. So to just be conscious in terms of what it is that we're compounding every day.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming and for hanging live and for answering all the questions. And I look forward to this new gift that you are going to be posting from Andrew soon.
Thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure and honor to be here with you all.
Awesome. Thanks, friends. We will see you next time.